Okay, so let's go ahead and keep going along the lines with templates, and then at the very end of that, we'll run our transaction. So let's go ahead and go down to our Manage Template section, and this will show you all of the transaction templates that you have access to. So that's going to show you all of the templates you have created, whether you shared them or not, and you will also see any templates that another account user has created and shared. Please note that if you didn't create the template, you cannot edit that template. Only the person who's considered the owner, which is the person who created the template, can edit the template. If you hover over the actions radial of your template, you can choose properties to rename that template or share or unshare that template. You can choose modify, which would bring you back into that template and allow you to make any changes. You can also copy your template or delete your template as well. Did you have any questions on the Manage Template section?
No, I would like to know or see where the permission is to share, that I need to get to share the template.
Okay. So to manage permissions, again, you can either do so with the users or the user groups. Let's go ahead and manage it with the user groups. We'll go to the transaction processing, and we're going to go to properties. And then to manage permissions, you go to permissions. And if you look in the general permissions, there's a permission called Share Transaction Templates. So now that I've given that permission and I'm going to click OK, that's given to every single user that's in my transaction processing user group. That is also a permission that we do not give by default.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go ahead. You're very welcome. Did you have any other questions while we're paused?
No, that's it.
Okay, let's jump back down to EC zone, and now we're going to go to credit card processing. This will bring us to our transaction screen, and as I mentioned, it does match the template screen, and it is broken down into several smaller sections. The top of which on our transaction screen is the search section. This is where you can search through any templates that you have access to or any stored cards on the account. I want to very quickly jump down to our credit card information section. Whenever you are running a transaction against a new non-stored card, you will need to fill this section out. If you want to store that new card for future use, then you'll just click the Store Credit Card box. And again, because you are required to store a card within a customer, that's going to prompt you to assign this new card to a customer. If this new card is also with a new customer, you can add your new customer on your transaction screen just by clicking Add. And that would open up a new box where you can enter in your new customer information here instead of going back into your customer account section and adding it there. I also want to point out a couple of differences on the screen with regards to the transaction type. There is another type available here, and this is the type of credit. This is not available on the template section, but a credit transaction would be if you need to issue a credit to your customer for whatever reason. For our purposes today, we're going to run our transaction from the template that we just saved. So to search through your templates, you can click the Search Templates button, which would open up a box and it would show you all of the templates you have access into. If you have a lot of templates like I do, then you can just open up your filter criteria and search through your templates in any one of these manners. Another way to search through your templates is by typing in your template name. You can probably guess that this is another type ahead feature. And it brings down a list of templates that match what you typed, and then you can choose your template. We can see here that this filled out our friendly name and our name on card. It did select our transaction type for us, and it filled out our credit card information section, along with the cardholder information section and the line item detail. So if we come up here, I want to briefly talk about the credit card information section. We can see that now we can make edits to this information if we needed to. So one thing that you can change is the security code status. The default value for that is not provided. It's That's the default value because it is against PCI compliance for you to store the security code of a card with the rest of that card information. When you're running your transaction, if you actually happen to have the security code with you, then you can change that value from not provided to provided, and then the next field to the right is where you can enter in that security code. If you don't have your security code, that's perfectly okay. You can just leave that value at not provided, and we'll pass that along with your transaction. If you know your expiration date on this card has changed, you can also edit that in this section as well. You just select your new expiration date and make sure you leave the box checked where it says Update Stored Credit Card, and that's going to update your expiration date. Again, we have the cardholder information section. That's where you enter in the address information for this card. I do want to point out the address line 1 and the postal code fields. We do recommend that you fill those out with each transaction, and that is because Payment WorkSuite will perform address verification with every transaction that gets submitted. Address verification will check what you enter in for the address line 1 and postal code fields against what the card issuing bank has on file. If we come down to our line item detail, we can see this did fill out for us because it's stored within a template with the product that we stored ahead of time. Since this is that product that I talked about briefly as my default or generic product, now that we're actually running a transaction, I'm going to go ahead and edit those fields that I mentioned. So to edit the line item detail, you'll hover over the Actions Radio button and choose Edit. And then you can make whatever edits you wanted to. So we're going to make our invoice number an actual invoice number. We're going to change our amount from 0 to an actual amount. And now I'm ready to add this back. To do that, you'll just hover over the Actions Radio button again and choose OK. I do want to remind you that you are only required to pass along one line item detail with each transaction to qualify for level 3. But again, you can pass along as many as you want. If you wanted to add another line item, or just click Add Line Item, and then search for your stored products by clicking Select Line Item or typing in the product code field. If we come down to our tracking information section, we can see here all of these fields are now able to be entered. So with our customer reference value, let's go ahead and change our purchase order number from a generic number to an actual number. And like I said, we do recommend that you fill out your order number, invoice number, and invoice date. If you don't also have an order number or an invoice number, then you can repeat your customer reference value. And your invoice date field can be filled out as either the day your order was received or the day you processed your transaction. We already filled out our user-defined fields. We selected our shipping company, so let's go ahead and enter in a tracking number. And then we'll come down to our transaction totals. If you need to edit the tax information, you can do so as well. You also have the option to update your template if you wanted to. I don't want to in this case, so we're going to go ahead and choose Submit Transaction. Once you click Submit Transaction, you may see a message that looks like this. This is an example of what an address verification message looks like. This is telling us that our transaction was approved or authorized. However, it's right now in the status of needs review because our zip code did not pass verification. That means the postal code we entered in doesn't match what the card issuing bank has on file. If you see a message that looks like this, you have a couple options. You can decide later or X out of this message, and that will leave this transaction in the status of needs review, and so someone will need to come in and capture that transaction at a later time. You can void the transaction, and we'll send a message out to your processor to release the funds. And then you may or may not see an option to capture the transaction. If you trust your customer, you can go ahead and capture the transaction, which I am going to do because I do trust my customer. Once the transaction is successful, you'll get your receipt on your screen. That is how you know the transaction was successful. On your receipt, you're going to see your location information at the top. So if you remember, we had the location level in the administration tab. That's what populates on your receipt. You will also see some information about your transaction. You'll see in the transaction type. You'll see what type of transaction that was. In our case, we did a capture. You'll see the transaction status, and in our case, it was submitted. You'll also see your line item detail and the total amount of that transaction, along with your transaction notes at the very bottom. If you need to email a copy of this specific receipt to anybody else, then you can go to your email receipt tab and enter in up to 20 additional email addresses to receive this specific receipt. Let's go ahead and we'll talk about our help button. Like I mentioned early on, this help button is screen specific. So whatever screen you're on, if you click the help button, you're going to have a list of topics that match your current screen. So if we see right now we're on EC Zone Credit Card Overview, and we have a list of topics that match our current screen. But when we move forward to the View Transaction screen, you can see that our help button changed right along with us. And now we're on the Credit Card Transactions View Transactions Overview, and we have a new list of topics that match our new screen. So our new screen is the View Transaction screen. This is where you would go to view and take any further action on your transactions that were done through Payment WorkSuite within the previous year. If you need to search for a specific transaction, you can do so using the filter criteria. And your transactions will be organized by date with the most recent one on top. So we can see here our very top transaction is the one that we just did. We see that it is in the status of submitted, which means it was successfully captured, and it will be sent out for settlement tonight. And then tomorrow morning when I come into work, it'll be in the status of processed. If you hover over the Actions Radial button of a transaction, you can select Receipt to view the receipt again. You can also choose Detail to view a little bit more about the transaction. The detail will show you the user who ran the transaction along with the detailed status and your 3 user-defined fields. The detail is on top of a copy of a receipt but is not visible to your customer. Also from the Actions Radial button, you can void the transaction before it gets sent out for settlement, or you can copy the transaction. Any transaction that you see that's in the status of needs review or authorized do require further action to capture that transaction. You can do so by hovering over the Actions Radial button and choosing Capture or a Quick Capture. The difference between the two is the amount that you would like to capture. Selecting Capture brings you back into the transaction and will allow you to edit the amount that you would like to capture. And a Quick Capture will capture the full amount that you authorize on that transaction, and that keeps you on the View Transaction screen. Let's go ahead and choose a Quick Capture. That opens up a confirmation box. I'm going to go ahead and choose OK. We can see the transaction is now in the status of submitted. However, a receipt did not generate. If you would like to view the receipt, again, you can do so from the Actions Radial button and choose Receipt. And we see here our transaction type now is Quick Capture. Any transaction that's in the status of processed can be refunded by any user who has that permission to process a credit transaction. A refund can be done from the Actions Radial button, where you'll choose Refund or Quick Refund. The difference between these two is the amount you would like to refund. So a Quick Refund works just like our Quick Capture did, but in reverse. So a Quick Refund would refund the full amount of that transaction while keeping you on the View Transaction screen. And a refund is a partial refund, and that will bring you back into the transaction. Let's go ahead and we'll do a refund. We can see we are now brought back into the transaction. You'll need to scroll down to your line item detail and change the amount to the amount you would like to refund back. So if I wanted to issue a refund for $100, I'm going to change that amount from $800 to $100, and then we're going to submit the transaction. And again, you'll get your receipt so you know the transaction was successful. We see our transaction type here is a refund. It was submitted. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the total amount of the refund, and you'll also note that it's in parentheses, and that's just an easy way for you to differentiate between captures and credits. because credits are always in parentheses. Did you have any questions on the process transaction or view transaction screen?
Yes, our accountant likes us to print a copy of the receipt every time we do one. How do you print a receipt?
That is very easy. You'll just go to your view transaction screen. If you have closed out of the receipt, you'll pull up the receipt, and all you'll need to do is you can click this blue floppy disk icon, which is the export dropdown. You'll click that, you'll export it to PDF, and then you can print the PDF.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you have any other questions?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, let's go ahead and come down to reports, and we'll start with create reports. To create a report, you have a couple options here. If you start with the report selection, you can come to the My Templates dropdown, and this will show you any template report that you yourself have created. What that means is any report that you create does have the ability to be saved as a template with your username. Please don't confuse that with the transaction templates that can be shared, because a report template at this time cannot be shared. But if you want to run a report from a template you created, you can click the templates dropdown and choose your template. If you come to the select report dropdown, then you can run a report from one that we have created for you. Those reports consist of a cardholder listing report, which would be a report on all of your stored cards that would be expiring within a chosen date range. A user access report is an administrator's report on user activity, such as login attempts and password changes. And then finally, we have 3 reports that we're going to run, and those are all reports on your transactions from Payment WorkSuite. The first one we're going to run is the operational version that has the most basic information out of all 3 reports. When you choose your report, you'll see that your report filters open for you, and you can filter this report by date type, and you have multiple types. So you have created date, off date, capture date, and settle date. We're going to leave ours as created date. You can also choose your date range, which you can do specific dates, or you can do a relative date range, which you can do today, yesterday, last month, month to date, or year to date. I like to do specific dates, and we're just going to keep this as today. You can also choose the merchant, location, and terminal for the report if you have more than one. You can also filter the report by card brand. To remove the check from all the boxes, you can just click Clear All. To add a check to all the boxes, you can choose Select All. And then you can also choose the transaction status that you want on the report. Like I mentioned, you can create any report and save it as a template within your username. To do so, you'll check the box where it says Save as New Template, and then you'll give that template a name and click Save. And then you also have an option to create a report now and pick it up later. We do recommend that you would utilize this pick up later option if you're creating a large report. However, we're going to go ahead and create our report right now. To pick up right now, so we're going to choose Create Report, and it will generate for you in the Report Viewer section of your screen. Let's go ahead and run the Excel formatted version of this report, which has a lot more information on it, and it can include your line item detail if you would like. And we are going to pick this report up right away as well. So we're going to choose Create Report, and it generates for us. And you can see right away that this report does have a lot more information on it compared to the operational version. The third and final version of the transaction summary report that we have is customizable. So you can choose not only what you want on the report, but the order that they appear in as well. So starting with your step 1, you're going to select the fields you want on your report by placing a check in the box beside those fields. And then you need to apply your selection. Anytime you make any changes to your step 1, whether it's adding fields later or removing fields later, you do need to apply this selection. Coming down to step 2 is where you will select the order that you want your fields to appear in on your report. And then step 3 is where you adjust your filters like we did on our previous 2 reports. If you would like to add a specific filter to a field you chose in step 1, those will appear in your Select New Filter dropdown. So to add a filter to a field, you'll just select the field from the dropdown, which is then removed from the dropdown in order to add a filter to it. For this report we're creating now, let's go ahead and pick this one up later. Again, we do utilize or recommend utilizing that pick up later option if this is going to be a large report. To pick it up later, you'll just check the box where it says pick up this report later. Then you are prompted to name the report. You're also prompted to select the format that you would like to download in. And then you also have an option to be notified when the report is ready. If you check that box, you'll need to enter in an email address, and then that email address will receive an email when the report is ready. Once you are ready to submit the report for creation, you'll just click Create Report, and then your confirmation text appears below again. That says this report has been queued for processing and can be viewed in the Pickup Report section. So let's say that I received an email that says my report is ready. So I'm going to come into Payment WorkSuite. I'm going to go straight to the Pickup Report section. And this is where you'll see your previously requested reports along with the expiration date, which will be 1 week after you created that report. And then you'll also see the status. That report is ready to be picked up if it is in the status of complete, and that can be picked up from the Actions Radio button where you can select Download or Delete. If we move down to our Manage Template section, this is where you can manage your report templates. This shows you your template name, the report type. It also shows you when you created the template and when you last updated your template. If you hover over the actions radial of a template, you can choose properties in order to rename the template. Modify will bring you into the Create Reports page with the template pulled up. Run will run an actual report. You can also copy your template or delete the template as well. Did you have any questions on report templates or reports in general?
So I can go into this section and update a report that I've already created a template for?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Let's move down to the News and Information section, and we'll start with the introductory videos. These videos coincide with just about every section of Payment WorkSuite. In my opinion, the videos are all very helpful and informative. They each last about 10 to 15 minutes long, which is important to keep in mind because there is a 15-minute timeout security feature for Payment WorkSuite, and that means that there's no account activity within 15 minutes. You are required to log back in, and anytime you would try to navigate somewhere else in the account, it would bring you straight to the login screen. Account activity would not be considered watching a video. It would be considered moving to a different section of the account or submitting something. So if you are filling out a transaction and it takes you longer than 15 minutes, when you hit submit, you will be brought back to the login screen.
Can we change that time? Can it be longer?
Unfortunately not, because that 15 minutes is the longest allowed time due to PCI compliance. So we gave you guys the max amount of time as possible.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I do like to point out this transaction processing and review video in case your first transaction seems a little daunting or you would like to train your new employees later at another time. We also have the knowledge base available for extra assistance. If you would like to know a little bit more about something, then you can type that into your knowledge base, and then you'll just click search and your results will appear on the right. I think the knowledge base is very convenient in that it does connect to the screen-specific help button. So when you're using that help button, again, there's a list of topics that match the screen you're on. When you choose the topic you want help with, there is a link to the corresponding knowledge base article. So if you click that link, it would open up a new tab or a new browser section with the information of the topic you chose. Moving down to the release notes, this is where we put any information about any updates that we make to Payment WorkSuite, and these are organized by date for you. The terms and privacy are what you will need to read and accept the first time that you log in. And then again, like I mentioned very early on, you can access the dashboard at any time by clicking on the dashboard link on the top right or left corner of your screen, where you are brought back to the dashboard. Again, you'll see any announcements here, along with the phone number and the email address for our customer support. And we are available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday in Eastern Time. But that does cover everything today. Did you have any other questions?
Just when we're ready to run our first transaction, if we forget anything that you told us, can a customer service rep walk us through something?
We would be more than happy to. Our customer support is free, and again, you can find that number on our dashboard. And if you call anytime between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday in Eastern Time, you should be able to get a representative who would be happy to help you process your first transaction.
Okay, perfect. That's great.
Okay. If you don't have any other questions, then I'd like to thank you very much for participating today, and I hope you have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You as well.